what the rhythm of the year was. So things like that will change, and how we are part of the support for the monarchy may change slightly. Who knows?
As the world quietly moved to the final months of 2024, no one expected a storm from behind palace walls. But then, Queen Camilla stepped forward and said something no one was prepared to hear. Not the royal family, not her closest aides, not even the British public. What she revealed didn't just raise eyebrows. It left an entire nation stunned and asking, what else don't we know? The cameras were rolling. Her tone, steady but shaken. This wasn't a ceremonial speech. It wasn't a pre-written palace statement. It was a personal admission, unfiltered, emotional, and completely off-script. While many expected a carefully crafted address to boost public perception, what they got instead was a raw confession that may have permanently altered how the monarchy is seen. Behind the royal titles, the protocol, the polished appearances, something far more human and far more fragile was exposed. So what exactly did Queen Camilla reveal? And what does it mean for the future of the royal family? Stay with us, because this moment wasn't just shocking. It may have changed the course of the crown forever. The documentary Bombshell. But before we dive into the chaos now echoing through the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, we need to rewind back to the moment that lit the fuse on what now feels like a constitutional time bomb. It all began during the filming of what would soon become one of the most controversial royal documentaries in recent history, Her Majesty the Queen, Behind Closed Doors. Premiering on November 11th, 2024, this documentary was meant to offer a curated glimpse into royal life, but instead, it detonated a revelation no one expected. The footage takes us to March 2024, just 1 month after the world was rocked by King Charles's cancer diagnosis. The cameras were there to document what should have been an ordinary, controlled royal engagement, a routine visit to the government house on the Isle of Man. But what unfolded was anything but routine. Picture the scene. Queen Camilla, surrounded by smiling officials, curious onlookers, and respectful well-wishers. The atmosphere was calm, composed, quintessentially British. Then, as if the universe had been holding its breath for the perfect moment, a voice from the crowd breaks the silence. Your Majesty, how is the king doing? A question simple in form, but devastating in implication. Now, any royal before her would have followed the script. The time-honored choreography of discretion, a soft smile, a polite nod, perhaps a carefully worded reassurance. His Majesty is grateful for your concern. And then, swiftly on to the next handshake. But Camilla didn't follow the script. She burned it. He is doing very well, she began, and for a moment, it seemed she might stick to the expected lines. But then, she kept talking. And what came next sent a chill through every royal correspondent, constitutional scholar, and palace aide who would later watch the footage. She admitted, plainly, publicly and on record, that the king's health was keeping him from performing many of his duties. She acknowledged that she had taken over the majority of official appearances, stepping in for the monarch on a growing number of occasions. In a single breath, Queen Camilla confirmed what many had feared but few dared to say aloud. The King of England was being quietly sidelined by his illness. Think about that. The Queen Consort, on camera, during an official event, publicly stated that the monarch, the symbolic pillar of continuity and power, was no longer able to fulfill his role as expected. No palace statement, no press release, no carefully massaged memo from royal advisors. Just a quiet confession, spoken in the open, and now recorded for history. You can almost hear the silence in that room, a stillness thick with disbelief. The weight of her words didn't just hang in the air, they dropped like an anvil. In that moment, Camilla didn't just break royal protocol. She may have shifted the very course of the monarchy. But here's the part that will truly make your jaw drop. Because that bombshell, it was just the beginning. What followed made this shocking admission feel like the calm before the storm. The silent revolution. While the entire world was fixated on King Charles's shocking cancer announcement, a far more dramatic transformation was quietly unfolding behind the palace gates. A silent revolution that went almost entirely unnoticed. And here's what they desperately don't want you to piece together. Despite a serious health battle, Charles insisted on continuing his royal duties. Reports emerged that Queen Camilla said he won't slow down and won't do what he's told. At first glance, it sounds like the noble image of a monarch putting duty above all else. Admirable, inspiring. But look closer, because beneath that carefully curated narrative lies a stunning power shift and a strategy so subtle it can only be executed by someone who knows the palace inside and out. The setup, while Camilla publicly framed Charles as the unbreakable king, the steadfast ruler unwilling to rest, she was quietly absorbing his royal responsibilities one by one. What looked like concern for a husband's health was, in truth, a calculated transfer of power. Picture this. The public sees Charles at a handful of high-profile events, ribbon cuttings, photo ops, carefully chosen appearances. He smiles. He waves. Business as usual. But look deeper. Start counting. Look at the royal schedules. Pay attention to who's doing what. Suddenly, Charles's calendar begins to empty. Engagements he would normally lead, reassigned. Official meetings, quietly chaired by someone else. Ceremonial duties, carried out by Camilla with increasing frequency and authority. And here's the part that chills the blood. This wasn't just a temporary arrangement. This wasn't a queen helping her husband through illness. This was a systemic, deliberate reshaping of the monarchy's inner workings. The shift. We were witnessing a moment unprecedented in modern royal history. A queen consort not only stepping in for king, but operating as a de facto monarch. A shadow reign. Quiet, calculated, unquestioned. And the public? They had no idea. Thanks to the palace's highly skilled press team, the illusion of stability was perfectly maintained. Carefully staged photographs, well-timed headlines, smiling faces. But behind the cameras, Camilla was now calling the shots, running the day-to-day, influencing decisions, wielding power not just beside the throne, but behind it. She wasn't just supporting the king, she was shaping the crown's future. And then came November 2024, a crisis so sudden, so unexpected. It sent Buckingham Palace into complete disarray. For a brief moment, the cracks in the facade became impossible to hide. What happened next would test Camilla's control and reveal just how deep the silent revolution had truly gone. The November nightmare. November 5th, 2024. Remember that date, because it marks one of the most precarious moments in modern royal history. Not because of what had happened, but because of what almost did. Queen Camilla was forced to cancel official engagements after being diagnosed with chest infection. Doctors recommended a short period of rest. At first glance, it sounds harmless. A 77-year-old woman with a chest infection? Common, understandable, expected. But the truth beneath that statement sent a shockwave through Buckingham Palace. Because in the world of monarchy, timing is everything. And this timing was catastrophic. Camilla had just returned from a high-pressure overseas tour of Australia and Samoa, a trip packed with public duties and diplomatic weight. She was the engine keeping the monarchy running. Now, let me show you the full picture of what was unfolding behind those palace walls. King Charles, locked in his own fight with cancer, making only a handful of appearances, his capacity to lead dwindling by the week. Princess Catherine, still recovering from her own cancer diagnosis, navigating a carefully staged return to public life. And now Camilla, the woman who had stepped into the void, who had been holding the crown together like glue, had fallen. This wasn't just a royal health scare. It was a constitutional crisis in the making. For the first time in living memory, all three of the monarchy's key figures were simultaneously compromised by serious health issues. No king, no queen, no Princess of Wales. Just an empty court and a nation watching. They had no choice but to scramble. The Duchess of Gloucester, a relatively low-profile royal, was dispatched to fill in for Camilla at the Field of Remembrance at Westminster Abbey, a symbolic event, and they were calling in backups. This wasn't protocol. This was damage control. Now here's the chilling part. The part no one noticed at first. Camilla hadn't just fallen ill that week. She'd been battling this infection for over a month, for weeks of exhaustion, persistent coughing, a slow, grinding decline that she tried to manage behind the scenes while the monarchy teetered on the edge. Think about that. For an entire month, the second most powerful figure in the royal family was barely staying on her feet, and yet she remained the face of calm, the symbol of continuity, the glue binding the system. Picture the panic in those royal meetings. Emergency strategy sessions, late-night calls with advisors, contingency plans reviewed and rewritten, every scenario considered, except this one. And still, the palace clung to its polished front. Even Camilla's personal statement, "I'm obviously getting much better," bit of sort of coughing going on, was less about truth and more about optics, reassuring, vague, carefully managed, just enough vulnerability to generate sympathy, just enough strength to mask the chaos. But here's what makes this all the more unnerving. It's happened before. A moment in royal history when health, silence, and strategy collided, and the entire monarchy shifted as a result. The public didn't see it coming then. And unless we look closer, we may not see what's coming now. The haunting echo of history. Let me take you back to the winter of 1952. Because what's happening inside Buckingham Palace right now is not new. It's not unprecedented. It's a terrifying echo of one of the monarchy's darkest, most carefully buried secrets. Back then, King George VI was gravely ill, battling lung cancer behind palace walls. But here's the part that will send a chill down your spine. The British public had no idea how close their king was to death. The royal family, with full cooperation from government and media, made a calculated decision to hide the truth. Every symptom, every scan, every hospital visit was swept under layers of official language and smiling appearances. Press releases called it a minor health concern. Photos were staged, speeches pre-written, appearances heavily choreographed. All of it to maintain the illusion of royal strength and stability. Sound eerily familiar? Because while the public was reassured, King George VI was dying. And then, like a thunderclap out of nowhere, he was gone, dead in the night, announced to a shocked public the next morning. No warning, no transparency, just a brutal, cold revelation that they had been deceived. The betrayal was total. Across the nation, people felt manipulated, like children, lied by those they trusted most. The monarchy, that age-old pillar of duty and dignity, had sacrificed truth for control, and it shattered public confidence. It took decades to rebuild. Now fast forward to 2024, and watch carefully, because that same ghost is haunting every move Queen Camilla now makes. She stands in a position her predecessors never faced, trying to balance transparency with tradition, honesty with protocol, truth with control. She knows the story of George VI. She knows the damage of secrecy. And yet, she also knows what unchecked truth can do to the image of the monarchy. But here's where the story takes an absolutely mind-bending twist. Camilla, in a moment that broke royal precedent, chose honesty. She spoke publicly, revealed details that would have been buried in another era. She didn't pretend she was fine. She didn't disappear quietly into recovery. She made her vulnerability known. And the reaction? It split the country in half. The nation divided. The moment that footage aired, the raw, unscripted documentary clip of Queen Camilla speaking with uncharacteristic candor, the internet ignited. But what happened next didn't just break the internet. It exposed the fault lines of an entire nation. Two sides, two realities, one country, seemingly watching two different versions of the same moment. On one side, there was relief, a wave of gratitude, admiration, even hope. People were saying, finally, a royal who's real. She's treating us like adults. This is the monarchy we've needed for decades, honest, human, and unafraid. To them, Camilla wasn't just opening up about illness. She was breaking a century-old curse of silence, pulling the monarchy into the 21st century, where leaders speak the truth, even when it's hard. For these supporters, this wasn't a crack in the crown. It was a beam of light breaking through the stone. But the other side? Oh! They saw something very different. And what they saw has terrified royal advisors ever since. Because almost instantly, conspiracy theories started to spread, fast, viral, and sharp as knives. People were asking, why now? Why is she revealing Charles's condition after months of silence? What's happening behind palace doors that they don't want us to see? The skeptics weren't buying the vulnerability. They saw strategy, not sincerity. They saw a queen playing the long game. And to them, this wasn't transparency. It was the most sophisticated PR operation in royal history. Carefully timed, carefully worded, controlled vulnerability, weaponized to secure public loyalty. And it worked for some. But here's where things spiral into something even bigger. The world was watching. Constitutional monarchies from Sweden to Japan began quietly studying Britain's transparency experiment. Diplomatic cables were exchanged. Royal advisors from across Europe were analyzing social response, media framing, and public impact. Because what started as one Queen's health update has become a case study in the future of monarchy itself. Think about it. A royal family publicly confronting illness. A queen breaking centuries of stoic silence. A media machine playing both defense and offense. And a divided nation trying to decide if this is revolution or manipulation. We are witnessing a real-time experiment in how monarchies survive in an age of total information. And just when it seemed like Queen Camilla had shown all her cards, what happened next completely shattered everything we thought we knew about her true motivations. The master strategist revealed, brace yourself, because what I'm about to suggest may completely redefine everything you thought you knew about Queen Camilla. What if, and I want you to really sit with this, what if everything that's happened over the last 12 months, the transparency, the illness updates, the public vulnerability, the accidental shift of royal power behind the scenes, wasn't just circumstance but strategy? Let's rewind. Camilla wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Not in this role. She wasn't raised to be queen. She wasn't groomed for it like Diana. She wasn't beloved. She wasn't even tolerated. She was public enemy number one. The woman blamed for shattering the fairy tale. The other woman, who spent decades in the shadows, reviled by the press, whispered about in public, and booed by crowds. By all accounts, she should have faded quietly into royal background noise. Tolerated, perhaps, but never trusted. But that's not what happened. Instead, over time, meticulously, methodically, Queen Camilla re-engineered her public persona. Not by denying her past, but by outgrowing it. And here's where it gets extraordinary. While battling her own health crisis, while supporting a husband undergoing cancer treatment, while stepping in to keep the royal machine running, she showed us what no monarch has dared reveal in a century. Human fragility, wrapped in dignified resolve. I'm obviously getting much better, she says. Bit of sort of coughing going on. It's a small phrase, casual, almost throwaway, but it's surgical in its effect. Not too dramatic, not too dismissive. Perfectly balanced. She's signaling strength, but leaving just enough room for compassion. She's inviting empathy while commanding respect. Every statement she's made, every public move she's taken, feels spontaneous. But look closer. It's as if we're watching a grandmaster chess game, and Camilla's playing 10 moves ahead. Here's the mind-bending twist. What if this entire moment of crisis, this unprecedented confluence of royal illness and institutional vulnerability, isn't a threat to the monarchy at all? What if it's its greatest opportunity? Because in a world where traditional royalty feels outdated, where younger generations demand transparency, authenticity, and relatability, Camilla has delivered exactly that on a silver platter. She's rewritten the rules. No longer the cold, detached royals of the past, but flawed, mortal, honest human beings doing their best in impossible circumstances. And who's at the center of that transformation? Not Charles, not William, not Kate. Camilla, from the monarchy's greatest liability to its most irreplaceable asset, to, dare we say, the real strategist behind the crown. But before we call this a royal comeback story, you need to hear what happened in early 2025, when a single decision made by Camilla shook the palace so deeply, it risked changing the line of succession forever. The final revelation. Here it is, The twist that rewires everything we've unpacked so far. Queen Camilla isn't just managing a crisis. She's engineering a revolution. Let that sink in. This isn't about damage control. This isn't about image repair. This is a masterclass in royal evolution. And she's writing the playbook in real time. Because if you trace the pattern, if you connect the carefully placed dots from her vulnerable health disclosures to her strategic public appearances, to the power she's quietly consolidated behind palace walls, you'll realize something absolutely staggering. Camilla is reshaping the monarchy not to protect it, but to make it matter. She's not clinging to the old world. She's dragging the crown into the new one. And here's where it becomes truly unprecedented. Insiders are now whispering that Camilla's influence could extend far beyond palace gates, into policy, into public health, into the very fabric of British governance. We're already hearing murmurs about royal-backed health reforms inspired by recent events, not just ceremonial gestures, but real, tangible efforts to support a nation grappling with aging healthcare systems, mental health crises, and institutional fatigue. Imagine it, a monarchy that doesn't just represent the people from a gilded balcony, but one that advocates for them, fights for them, speaks to their fears and futures. Queen Camilla, once branded a threat to royal stability, has become its greatest evolutionary catalyst. She's not destroying the institution, she's future-proofing it. And in doing so, she's achieving what no royal figure in generations has even dared attempt. She's making the monarchy feel relevant, relatable, real. Every calculated break from protocol, every raw moment of televised vulnerability, every strategic step toward openness was leading here, to this moment, to the birth of a monarchy. The British people don't just tolerate out of tradition, but one they might actually believe in again. And that may be Queen Camilla's greatest legacy of all. So here we are, staring into a future no one saw coming. The woman once branded the monarchy's greatest villain, maybe writing its most triumphant chapter. Queen Camilla took a crisis that could have crippled the crown, the simultaneous health battles of its most senior members, and flipped it on its head. She turned uncertainty into opportunity, silence into strategy, and vulnerability into power. She didn't just endure the storm, she weaponized it. And in doing so, she's done the unthinkable. She's redefined what the British monarchy is, and what it could be. The royal family as we once knew it, gone. What's rising in its place is something unprecedented. A monarchy that's no longer just symbolic, but strategic. No longer untouchable, but human. No longer frozen in time, but finally evolving. Camilla has gone from the margins of the royal story to holding the pen that writes its next chapter. And here's the question we all have to wrestle with. Is Queen Camilla a master strategist, revolutionizing the monarchy from within? Or are we witnessing the slow collapse of a centuries-old institution desperately clinging to relevance? I want to hear your thoughts. Seriously, drop your theories in the comments. Let's open this up. And if this story shocked you as much as it shocked me, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, what's coming next behind those palace walls will be even more unbelievable than what you've just heard. The monarchy's next era is being written, and Queen Camilla is holding the pen.